And I think he got the Holley Dash mounted too here the last couple days.
Another glove box door. They mocked up, cut the hole for the dash.
This is actually the original glove box door, and then that's a reproduction.
Hey, how's it going, everyone? Cody with Detroit Speed here. We're back with another project update vlog. I'm here with my man Matt. He's going to go through, show us everything that's been going on. We are running towards the end of the year here, so a lot of stuff's been trying to get done before the holiday season. Some of the biggest stuff being the Firebird. It's actually almost ready for interior. So we're going to go ahead and jump in here and see what's going on. All right, Matt, Deb's Firebird, what's been going on? Where are we at?
Still pushing along in the assembly phase. We actually, last time everybody saw this, had the doors on it. Ended up, we weren't happy with the stock door hinges. Anybody that's ever messed with these cars knows that these doors are insanely heavy. They like to sag, even after rebuilding the hinges. It wasn't holding a great gap, so we pulled them back off, swapped them for some Ring Brothers billet hinges. They're crazy nice, really strong. That's why those are back off. But other than that, Jason's been pushing on wiring. Got the ECM and everything finished wired up. We actually got everything powered up as far as the computer goes. Fuel tank is installed, all the fuel lines, checked for leaks. We cycled the ignition to cycle the pump. So we're getting really close to firing this thing up. And ultimately too, pulling the doors off wasn't a huge deal because to get the doors off, you pull the fenders off, which allowed Jason to finish wiring without having to lean over the fenders. So I'm sure he appreciated the little bit of backtracking there. But like I said, really close to firing. You can see intake tube kind of rough mocked up. It mounts to the inner fender. We should have it kind of tied up in place. So hope to be starting it honestly here, probably late today, maybe sometime tomorrow.
How much longer before it goes off to interior?
The biggest thing is make sure it runs decent. So a couple of weeks, maybe first of the year, depending on how everybody's holiday schedule goes. This time of year is kind of a little bit tough to plan. A lot of people taking vacation time. May push to the first of the year, but if it does, not a big deal. So
a lot of progress has been made just the past couple of weeks alone. I think the last time we looked at it, the dash wasn't in here, I don't think. Jason had been mocking everything up, kind of getting everything working, got all the speakers run, but I don't think the dash was in there, was it?
It was in and out. Now it's final mounted.
It's finally mounted, okay.
Functionally, as far as mechanicals and electrical goes, the car is really close to buttoned up in that aspect. Wiring being the big one. The whole cluster is finished. We'll show you that in a second. It's all wired, so just pop that in. And like I said, everything's been powered at this point. Detail stuff, put the panels back on, and obviously wheels and tires, and get it sent down to the interior shop.
And so these are the mounting brackets for those new door hinges, right?
Yeah, that's one of the spacers.
Okay.
I believe they do this because it's they're able to build the same hinge top and bottom, and then the top one just requires a spacer for the offset that's built into the door.
Oh, okay.
But they're really nice. So, but like I said, we weren't really happy with the factory hinges keeping the gaps nice. So, kind of stinks to have to not necessarily redo something, but backtrack a little bit. But for a car of this caliber and this quality, everything is really nice, and you hate to have a little bit of a sagging door long term. Yeah. So just do what we got to do to make it right, and that was the right move here. So
then the gas tank is mounted up too. I know Jason, I was talking to him earlier. He said he got all the wiring completed for it.
Yep, again, part of the functions check. The fuel tank went in, I think it was last week.
Oh, well, it's up there.
It's a Rick's tank, has their billet hat in it, and then it's got a Holley pump, and then of course we plumbed it all, Earl's soft lines and everything like that. So,
because usually on these, don't they hang down kind of low?
Yeah, it just depends what tank you go with. Yeah. All the Rick's tanks they're really nice, and the other thing that helps too is we typically paint all the tanks black. People usually don't want to see the stainless tank hanging down.
Yeah, it kind of helps it blend in there a little bit
more.
Helps
it go away.
Hide in the shadows. What gallon is this tank?
I want to say they're about 14 or 15 gallons. Okay. Which, LS and a 6-speed should get pretty decent fuel mileage or fuel range.
Close out panel.
Yeah. Nice. So yeah, when you're getting ready to first fire a car like this and checking for leaks, functions tests, and everything like that, the access through the trunk floor.
Yeah, makes it a lot easier than having to go up underneath. Yeah.
Inevitably, there's always some type of question about, did you tighten a line? was the fuel level sender wired correctly, or it never fails. Fresh build, you're always going to have stuff that you run into. So the easier you can build any car service wise, you appreciate it in the long run.
Cool.
But yeah,
let's go and take a look at the dash here. So these are Classic Instruments Autocross series.
Yep.
Yeah.
So a lot of stuff going on here. Roughly stock style configuration for the overall insert, but it was hand fabricated. We obviously set the gauges in. The whole panel was built out of aluminum, and then we did the carbon overlay, and then it's got a satin clear coat. It's not a full flat, but it's
it has a little bit of a sheen to it, but it's not like gloss or anything. Yeah, which is nice.
So there's a lot of work on that cluster. It turned out really nice. Another feature, so obviously vintage air, I believe it's called the Proline horizontal controller. So then we installed cruise control on this car. So what we did is we got another billet bezel from vintage air without the engraving in it. So just smooth black anodized, and then that allowed us to install all of our cruise control buttons.
Is that something that they sell, or is that just like a one-off thing?
I mean, it's their production part for the AC controller,
right.
And then we wanted to keep with the same style and theme, so we just called up and they were able to sell us just the raw piece without the actual AC control. So you got your cruise on off, your set and cancel. So keeps everything looking real symmetrical, consistent. All the wiring. Just try to make everything as serviceable as possible. Jason's a big fan of the Deutsch connectors, so most of the stuff we do is Deutsch. Real easy to disconnect versus, I'm sure people have dealt with like the Packard style connectors and stuff like that. That's like factory on these cars, and they're really tough to use, kind of big and clunky. So you've got a lot of stuff going on. These connectors package really nice. A couple other things to mention as far as getting this thing plumbed and ready to start. Mark scratch built our radiator lines. Sometimes we will go to the parts store with bent templates and get radiator hoses. On this one, made more sense to clean it up and build these out of stainless tubing, and then you just have your rubber couplers. That way, if you ever need to replace anything, you're just replacing straight sections. You don't have to source another hose. So it makes it pretty easy. And then also part of the plumbing, that's a Norris oil separator vent can. Another good one to mention we ran into on these cars, as far as second gen Camaro and Firebird go, they do not make, as far as we can tell, the reproduction pass-throughs for power windows or power locks, anything like that. Mark McDonald, resident Fox body expert, seems like we always use a Fox body part on every car. If anybody out there ever needs some type of pass-through, Fox body Mustang is a really nice reproduced grommet. As you can see, it's got a real small diameter end on each side. They're really affordable. I think it was like $14 for the pair. Wow. So if you've got a car and you need to get wiring to your doors, speakers, windows, door locks, those things right there. I think LMR is where we got them. But really nice generic application, and especially, if there's no reproduction, you've got to source something. So length, diameter, and everything, those really fit the bill.
All right, so if you're following us on Instagram, you've probably seen the project update photos week to week and all the work that Paul has been doing on the inner fenders to Simon Chevelle. So what else has been going on, and what's been going on specifically with the fenders there?
Pretty much been finishing up the shaping work on the inner fenders, getting really close now. Stuff like this is a lot of back and forth. Obviously the car is going to be a lot lower ride height. It's going to be a 19x10 front wheel, so to make sure we have the travel, you have to cycle this a ton of times. So while Paul was building the inner fenders, shaping them, forming them, in and out of the car a bunch of times, up and down on the lift, cycling it, turning it, making sure it's got the travel and the steer angle and everything like that. So getting really close to the final overall shape. We'll get them back out, finish metal finishing, DAing them, cleaning them up, and then he'll be on to fitting hood hinges, fitting the hood, getting those gaps right, and then just kind of working forward into the grill, bumper, stuff like that. So it's basically sitting down on a jounce bumper, so basically as low as the car could ever get right there. You see how tucked up inside the fender it is there.
Is that how low it's actually going to be, or?
No, it'll be up a little bit from there, but you know, this scenario is checking the jounce travel. You know, if you're ever to hit a bump at speed and bottom out on the jounce bumper, that's the travel you have. So you can see I can get my hand in over the top of the tire, so you know you've got good clearance.
Good, nice.
And the other big gain is when you start turning with your steer angle. These things had a real wide lip and then had a progressive slope, whereas now the lip's been shortened and turned completely vertical. So this profile is actually a lot thinner.
Oh yeah, so it goes like straight up in there.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
So when you get these things real low, you have to do a lot of work out here because you know everything looks good and awesome when you're sitting still, perfectly straight. But then as soon as you go kind of off camber, in and out of a parking lot with turn angle, this is usually where you run into a problem. He's got the steering column in, that's another thing that went in, and then that'll also allow us to move on to mounting the brake master. This car will be a manual brake setup between the big block and the raised inner fenders. Really tough to package a booster, and a lot of us here are honestly a fan of manual brakes. If you get your master and your calipers and everything sized appropriately, you know, I think the manual's got a better feel. So that's the route we're going on this one, and saves a little bit of trouble as far as not cutting the valve covers and the inner fender and stuff like that. I believe the brake pedal's on the inside right now, but you know, you can see your typical booster is, you know, 7-8 inch diameter at least. So right here is where you run into a big clearance problem. So we'll go manual. Be just the master cylinder. You know, we'll do some nicer than factory reservoirs, you know, some type of billet reservoir probably. So just be a real clean look. Be pretty anxious too. You know, obviously the front end suspension wise and ride height's mostly done. So that will also allow us to go ahead and set our rear axle width. It's getting our C6 full floater housing ends. So we'll mock up the rear tires, set the width, weld the housing ends on, and then we'll actually be able to get this thing outside on the ground and shoot some photos in bare metal, so you get a real feel for the ride height.
Nice.
So
is it getting a 9-inch or is it sticking with like a 12 volt?
It's a 9-inch in this one. So we tend to lean towards the 9 inches. Some customers want to keep GM and stay with the 12 volt. It's not a big deal, but you know, serviceability, maintenance-wise, 9-inch wins the vote.
Yeah, if you want to swap out any components, makes it a little easier.
Yep.
All right, and on to Randy's K5. What we got going on over here?
Quite a few things. Bruce finished up the inner fenders. People probably saw how we had to modify them to clear the upper control arm mount and shock tower basically on the frame. So changed the shape a little bit, did this nice radius opening, added these wings down to basically fill it out down to the frame. Gave it a real nice stepped flange, just to kind of give it OE feel to it. So both sides are finished up, fit, look awesome. Bruce moved on to mounting our booster master assembly. I think we're actually pretty close to offering the kit for these trucks. Bracket, clevis, booster, and master cylinder.
Oh, nice.
So be similar to the one that we offer for Camaros and Chevelles and stuff like that. Straight up bolt-on affair. The column mounting is finished up. Plate bolts in to the factory holes, kind of caps the whole area, helps reinforce it. It's got an I did it column. Those would just be some Borgeson steering shaft and universal components. The only thing is on the lower, being that this is the Toyota front clip, we had to remove the lower universal off of the factory Toyota steering shaft. And then other than that, all those pieces are all new, you know, basically stuff that we stock, and we made a kit, or made the components work for this truck. So, and I think he got the Holley Dash mounted too here the last couple days.
Nice. So he's got the other glove box door. They mocked up, cut the hole for the dash.
Yep. So yeah, that's cool. Like we said before, instead of starting with a gauge cluster or scratch building anything, this is the original glove box door, and then that's a reproduction. So gave us a nice flat surface to work with. It's the Holley Pro Dash. To finish the thing out, we will scan this and we'll actually 3D print a real nice bezel.
Oh, nice.
So you get a real nice seamless look. Sticking kind of with the style, you know, a lot of these older GM products use a lot of these oval headed Phillips screws. So Bruce just did 4 depressions in the corners Makes the assembly come out really easy, and then just kind of, it doesn't quite flush the screws out, but looks like something that could have been OE on this. We'll have a few more things to add. It'll get a headlight switch, wiper switch, may get some other auxiliary light switches, we haven't decided. The truck will have a few light bars and or light pods, and then with the software update that Holley came out with, I believe we will be doing the push button start in the Pro Dash, so that'll be cool. It saves us mounting another switch, so it'll keep it real clean.
So does that work? How does that work? Like once they open the door, it comes up with push start button on the dash, or do you have to actually have a physical push start button?
The button itself is actually in the screen. And
is it? Okay.
I believe you can edit the location and the style on the screen itself.
That's cool.
So like on these things, we always do a battery kill switch. So there will be something that gives the truck the initial ignition power, and then from there you'll be able to use the dash to start it. So one other thing he's moved on to is we're flushing the turn signals in. Factory turn signals, there's a depression here, and typically your turn signal or your marker light, it just bolts into the depression, and so it sticks out quite a bit. You've got this full thickness. What we did here, one of our engineers whipped up a drawing for these laser cut plates, so that allows you to mount the marker light from the rear. So cut the original depression out. Bruce fit this piece in really nice, tigged it all in, got just a little bit of warpage, so came back in, hammered, straightened that, so we're back to the nice profile, and then from there that allows us to come in. Still, again, kind of OE look, but cleaned up.
Yeah.
And what will happen too is once we get to the bodywork portion of this, we'll leave them as is with this flange, but once we start bodyworking the truck, get the profile 100% spot on, we will come in and we'll actually block sand these ribs off, so that you won't even have the ribs.
Even actually more flush.
Yeah, it'll be 100% flush. And the nice thing is you're still using an off-the-shelf produced marker light, NPD, Classic Industries. If you ever tear one up or anything weird happens, you can always replace it. Just be a matter of sanding it back out. We've made some custom lights and stuff before, but it's a lot of hassle, and down the road serviceability makes it a little bit harder. So if we can utilize stuff like that, it really helps in the long run.
All right, one we haven't talked about in a while that I know y'all are all excited about is the Daytona. Mark spent the week kind of mocking up some of the bracketry and the inner fenders to go with the fiberglass front clip here. So Matt, what exactly has Mark been doing? Like, what's the process behind getting all of this stuff to fit on there?
So people saw, kind of through the process, getting the whole front end aligned. We showed where he was building the inner fender structures several weeks back. Once the whole front end was on and squared, inner fenders were built. They're actually structurally part of the front end to help hold the fenders and the bumper and everything like that. So once he got totally done there, he got our headlight assemblies mounted. So these are totally one-off. We designed the whole headlight assemblies in CAD, had them laser cut, press bent. I guess what you'd call it the lens holder. Machine these in-house. EVOD machined the lenses for us. Those things are loaded with some projector assemblies from retrofit source. So really cool piece, a lot of components, really, really awesome light said and done. So he got those things mounted all in there, and then he has moved on to the rocker assemblies. Once he got the whole front end mounted, the new design, new style of the fenders, it stops parallel with or in line with the rocker of the original Charger. So from the factory, your fender would have come and wrapped all the way under and had probably 1 or 2 bolts right here. So you would have a seam. So our new fender stops short, so he's building these rocker extensions. So this is kind of the initial forming, worked off of the outside surface of the rocker, big long straight edge, matched the profile. And the way he's building this is it's all being plug welded and built in such a way that it looks like how the factory would have assembled panels. Depending on what kind of build you're doing, what kind of parts you're making, some people will weld the edges of these panels. They'll overlap panels, in such a way that you could tell it was individual components welded together, whereas just taking a more OE approach with plug welds, and overlapping panels that look like they make sense. So that's just the very start of his closeout there.
And once he gets done up at the front, will he be able to move on to the wing? Because I know a lot of people are probably excited to see that wing get mounted up.
So the goal is get the rocker extensions done. We'll close out the inside. Obviously, this has to be totally boxed so that debris, road grime, and stuff doesn't fill this cavity. So this will get totally finished out, and at that point, we're going to get this thing off of the surface plate because honestly, he's tired of working up on the plate. You know, it's hard to get around some of this stuff. So we'll get it off here, get a spot on the floor, put it up on stands, and then, like you said, he'll move on to the wing. Yep, making good progress. Starting to look more like a car. Once the wing starts going on and the rear quarters get flared, then we'll be able to get some wheels and tires on this one and start getting an idea of what the stance and overall ride height and attitude of the car really is. It's kind of interesting, you know, a lot of these builds obviously take a long time, and they're all on jack stands and or wood blocks, so you don't appreciate how low and how awesome some of these things look because they sit raised up. I mean, they all look like four-wheel drive trucks at this point. Granted, this one is, but you know, you put one on the ground for the first time, and it's pretty rewarding. So you walk up and you can like reach across the roof because the thing's chest high. So that's what you want. You want them all hammered.
All right, so that's that for this month's project update vlog video. Thanks for checking in, see what's going on here at the shop. We'll be back next month to update you on everything. I want to thank my man Matt hanging out and helping me talk through everything that's going on here in the shop. We'll see you next time.